Well, good afternoon, Living Temple people. Good morning, good evening, whatever it is for you. Welcome to our online church and announcements this week. My name's Dave. If you haven't met me, going to be hosting you this evening or morning and just taking you through a few announcements and just a little bit of a devotion. Can I show you something gross? All right, most of you said yes. Can anyone see this? That's gross. That is like my splint. It's like a mouth splint. It lives in my mouth. I can talk with it in if you want. And what it does is tries to stop me from grinding my teeth when I'm asleep at night. That's disgusting, right? It reminds you of that kid at school with the braces and they can't speak properly. So this here, on a functional level, I couldn't live without it, okay? It stops me from grinding my teeth, and if I don't wear it, I get like a really tight jaw and bad neck aches and headaches, and it messes with me. And I actually, the thing is, it's quite a gross thing because it lives in your mouth all the time, so it stinks and, it smells like saliva and it gets yellow no matter how much you clean it. Anyway, Jess really hates it, and sometimes when she's like dozing off, I'll just sort of like plop it on her shoulder and like gets all mad and like goes to hit it off. Or sometimes I don't even do it on purpose, but like, how when you're asleep, things happen and I might spit it out and then she'll wake up and it'll be like on her ribs or like biting her on the leg or something. It just seems to get all over the place. But like, as I said, on a functional level, superb. Like if you grind your teeth at night, get one of these things. They're expensive, but worth it. But on a purely like hygienic level, they're pretty gross because you can imagine they like live in your mouth all the time, and no matter how much you clean them, they still get a bit of a yellow tinge on them. And this is the craziest thing, is that like animals love them. Okay, so I was talking to my friend Brad, the dentist, and the biggest reason these things go missing is because dogs like can sniff them out and they run in and they steal them and take them out into the yard and eat them. Okay, because dogs like that sort of thing. Well, what's crazy is that not only dogs like them, and I can't believe I'm telling you this, but like cockies love them as well, man. Cockroaches. Now, we have cockroaches every now and then in our house. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, you unhygienic person. How dare you have cockroaches? You're gross. Well, look, everyone's got cockies, and we try to kill them, and just every now and then one just pops up. And I think it doesn't matter how much you kill them, or if you're a vegan and trap them and let them go, or whatever vegans do with cockies, they're always going to keep turning up. And one day I was sleeping, and I woke up to the sound of a cocky walking along my bedside table on a piece of paper. So it was like this real faint, like tick, 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 tick. And what I'd done is fallen asleep before putting this in, and the cocky was after it. He wanted it because it's all like slivery and appealing to cockies, and he just wanted to touch it with his feelers or whatever he wanted to do. Anyway, so as soon as I heard it, because I hate cockies, I've shared with you before, I hate like mice and rats and cockies. I just don't like the gross animals. So I turned on the light, and even though he really wanted to munch on this, the light scared him away and he scattered and disappeared. Now, you've probably noticed that whenever you turn on the light, if there's a cockroach, it'll just run under the fridge or whatever, even though you don't have cockroaches. Well, you might be thinking, well, what's that got to do with the gospel? Well, I think this morning, I've got a very simple devotion for you, but I think it's right for this week. And it comes from John chapter 8, verse 12. And what has happened is that Jesus has just spoken about the woman caught in adultery, and he ends by saying, look, I don't condemn you. He's talking about freedom, and so he sets this lady free. It's the one where he bends down and writes in the dirt, and whoever's without sin throw the first stone. It's that story. It's from John chapter 8. That's the context of this. And then after Jesus sets this woman free, he then says, again Jesus spoke to them saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Isn't that such a good verse? I'll read it again. I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And what Jesus is saying here is that there's going to be temptation in this world, in this broken world, and with broken people, for darkness to come around. That darkness could be all kinds of things. It could be in the form of loneliness. It could be in the form of anger or fear or addiction. There's things that weigh us down this side of eternity. what Jesus is saying, if you're experiencing any darkness, whether it be fear, loneliness, anxiety, whatever that is, the solution is not to focus on the darkness. The solution is not try to, minimize your action that way, although that can be helpful. What the actual solution on when darkness reigns is to shine the light of Jesus on there. To turn on the light. And like a cockroach running away from the light, same with the darkness. It has to go when the light of Jesus shines upon it. Have you ever noticed when you turn on a light, it's not like a battle between light and dark, that, the dark pushes back and the light pushes back and eventually the dark kind of sneaks out underneath the doorway. No, that's not how it works. The darkness is completely overpowered by the light. Just turning the light on is enough to defeat the darkness. And this passage says that Jesus himself is the light of light, that he's the light who shines away darkness. And it says whoever walks in him or whoever follows him will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. I get excited when I think about how good Jesus is when it comes to him and his power overcoming darkness. When we become Christians, it's not like the darkness stops. It's not like there's this instant reprieve forever. Like there's still the battles of life. There's still our own mental issues. There's still all our desires for revenge and whatever else. But our way to overcome that is not by your will, and is not by your might, and it's not by your power, but by the Spirit of God. And the way that works is by shining Jesus on that. Okay, let me give you a practical example. Okay, statistically speaking, in Australia, 90% of young people before they are the age of 18 have at the very least looked at pornographic material. Okay, that's horrible stats. Men and women together. All right, into adulthood, some people speculate that between 20 and 40% of all adults use pornography. Okay, that's just not like glance at it, but use it for sexual stimulation, like regularly use pornography. Okay, now what this passage is saying and the Christian church is actually not exempt from those percentages, if you're wondering. But what this passage is saying is that instead of like standing there looking at the darkness, okay, don't look at porn, don't look at porn, don't look at porn, don't look at porn, and trying to white knuckle it through to holiness, instead shine light on that darkness. In other words, say, Jesus, you know what? I've got this area of brokenness in my life and I need you to shine light on it. Look at that. Expose it. Bring it out into the light, and then the darkness disappears. Just confess before him and say, I've got an issue here and I need you to shine your light on it. That's not just for addiction. It's for everything. It's for fear. It's for brokenness. It's for loneliness. Jesus actually is light in the darkness. Let's just be honest, man. Sometimes walking around in the darkness can be freaky. Right? I still remember one time when we first planted the church, we were still meeting at Eleanor High School, and it was we had dinner or something afterwards, and it was in the middle. It felt like the middle of the night, but it was dark. It was probably only like 7:30 or 8 o'clock. But I locked up and I found myself all by myself in a school at night, and for some reason, it was like really dark. There was no moon out, and I locked the doors, and then I just got in my own head and freaked myself out. I was like, man, somebody's got to get me. And it's a school I've been in hundreds of times. There was no reason for it to freak me out, but it just was because it was dark and creepy. And then so what solved it is I ran to the car and turned on the light, and that very act in and of itself seemed to just scare away all the darkness. Now, I don't like to admit that I get scared by the dark every now and then. I don't generally get scared by the dark, but isn't it good to know that your darkness isn't defeated in your strength? It is actually by saying, Jesus, shine your light here. This week, we don't really have any announcements. I said at the start, this is like a cross between announcements and our sermon. We don't really have any like new announcements. No babies have been born this week, for once, I guess. There's still our usual prayer list that gets sent around. We're still praying for everyone. We're praying for people who are isolated. We're praying for people to continue to connect in small groups and continue meeting together. But, there's no change in the verdict on Jesus. Jesus is still good. His light still shines, and darkness cannot withstand it. This week you're going to get a letter from the church. We're going to email it out and also send it out. Just kind of making sure everybody's up to date with communication on, if and when and how we can get back to meeting on the weekends. And, we'll do that as soon as it's appropriate, as soon as it's safe, and as soon as we feel like that's the right call. It's not just me making the decision. I'm working with the admin team and leadership team and life group leaders where, we're discussing this together and praying into it together. But, even if it's another day, even if it's another week, month, or year, Jesus is still with you. You might be this might be isolation time, but you're not isolated because Christ dwells. This is our He is I Am series. He is I Am series. And you know what? He is light, and I am He that walks in the light. Maybe you want to turn me off in a moment and have a little chat to the people in your group or your small group and talk about how the darkness in your light is being overcome by the light of Jesus Christ or not. And if so, celebrate and thank Him for that light. And if not, don't condemn yourself, but grab His light shining in your darkness. If you think there's anything that you've done that is beyond His light, well, the context of this passage is a woman caught in adultery whom Jesus sets free. Right? That's no accident. Tell that story about the woman caught in adultery and then talk about being the light of the world, Jesus, because He knows what He's doing. So have a yarn to the people in your group, have a pray, look out for our newsletter this week. If you're feeling lonely, please reach out to somebody. If you're feeling isolated, make sure you proactively seek somebody to catch up with, and we'll be in touch, and we love you very much. God bless. Have a great week.